So I went and watched some Valentina Shevchenko old fights. I went and watched Jessica I versus Shevchenko and Shevchenko versus Nunes, Shevchenko versus Joanna. I was trying to come up on this screen and tell you guys, Shevchenko's different. She's not the same as she was. But really, she kind of is. She's always fought that same style, that really slow pace. She doesn't even really have a step in her rhythm. You know, a lot of fighters usually they step, even though it's not big, but they always have a little step to their bounce. Really, Shevchenko plants her foot and just waits for her opponent to throw so she can counter. It's always the same thing. And she's found a way in her past to really use that to her advantage against fighters, because when she was a bit younger, I guess, you know, the reflex, the speed, the accuracy, the power, all of these things, you still have them. And you can be a very good fighter. I referred to Roy Jones Jr. a lot in my previous videos, probably a few months ago. But Roy Jones Jr. is a prime example of how speed, accuracy, power, and reflexes can make you one of the greatest talents of the sport, right? But those are also the first things that go away with Father Times. So when Roy Jones was in his prime, he probably had the craziest streak of dominations. He was incredible. He just made it look super, super easy. But when Father Times hits and you don't have the nice boxing defense shells, you don't have the great head movement like other boxers, you can't last as long like the Floyd Mayweathers of the world, because Floyd Mayweathers had the basics in complete check. You know what I mean? He had the boxing fundamentals better than everyone else. But a fighter like Roy Jones Jr. really didn't. And I'm not saying he wasn't a good fundamental boxer, but he was flashy more than anything, and he relied on his speed, accuracy, reflexes, all these things that I've talked about to win the fights that he won. And that's why he looked so spectacular doing it. But Shevchenko, to me, had kind of a similar career to a Roy Jones Jr. Because really in her prime, and I'm not saying she's not in her prime, we'll see all of that, but really in her streak of domination, she used and relied on the things that I've spoke about, which is reflex, speed, accuracy, all of these great qualities. I was going to say power, but she doesn't have the greatest power, but she uses her timing and reflex and perfect counter to actually land the powerful shots. And she relied on all of these things, but unfortunately, like I said, those are also the first thing that goes away with Father Times. And I don't know how old she is, probably 35, 36, but Shevchenko is slowing down a little bit with the fights, and it kind of showed. And even, like I said, and I've said this in my prediction video, even though she's slowing down and even though she doesn't have the most impressive performances, especially in her last two now, she still always finds ways to win. She always finds ways. She never gives up on herself. She never shy away. She never gets stressed or anxious or panic. She always oh, something's wrong here. Let me try to find some other things. Let me switch it up. And obviously the takedown worked really well, and she was probably still winning that fight. She was winning that fight. She got caught in a submission at the end. But that just goes to show how Valentina Shevchenko is a great champion. She really is a great champion. She has that championship mentality. Even when she was getting choked out, right? It took her everything. It took Alexa Grasso to make her fucking skin look completely white for Valentina to tap. You know, it just showed that she wasn't willing to give it up so easily. She wanted to fight. She wanted to give it her all, and in her last two performances, that's what she's shown. And Alexa Grasso had a beautiful performance, right? She did the right thing, putting pressure on the fighter, putting pressure on the champion, walking her down, right? And I've done Muay Thai now for a little while, and I'm a pretty long guy, right? So I probably use my range really well, and it's a good thing. I can use this to my advantage. But even though I can, I don't like to do it because I know I have to be perfect, right? When I'm on the outside, it just feels like I have to be perfect at all time. I don't dictate the rhythm, the pace of the fight. I get tired more easily, right? Whereas when I put the pressure on the fighters, I can dictate the pace a little bit more. And it also feels like I'm more confident because I'm like, all right, you can hit me a little bit. I'll get hit, but hit you back myself. And that style of fighting, when you get in that rhythm and that stance and like I said, you get used to doing it, it's a lot easier. And Valentina Shevchenko was on the back foot a lot. She was running around the cage, rotating. With that being said, Alexa Grasso had a great performance. You know what I mean? She was able, like I said, to dictate the pace, control the rhythm of the fight, and capitalize on Valentina's mistake, which led at the end to the rear naked choke. It was a beautiful performance and a beautiful finish. But at the end of the day, the storyline of this fight was not that Alexa Grasso was the greatest fighter or the biggest upset in UFC history. I don't think it was the Alexa Grasso's performance, but more so that Valentina Shevchenko is finally regressing.